The sound of chatter, the clatter of trays, and the smell of sizzling teriyaki chicken wafting through the air. This was the heartbeat of the American shopping mall food court. For decades, food courts weren't just about eating. They were a central part of the mall experience, a place where shoppers, families, and teenagers all converged. Neon signs advertised pizza by the slice, fried rice piled high, soft pretzels dripping with butter, and endless cups of soda. Parents treated the food court as a pit stop during weekend shopping trips, while teenagers used it as their social hub, lingering long after their food was gone. At its peak, a Saturday afternoon food court was electric, bursting with energy, smells, and sounds that felt like a culture of its own. The rise of the shopping mall food court in the 1970s and 80s mirrored the rise of the suburban shopping mall itself. As malls expanded across America, developers realized they needed more than just anchor department stores to keep people inside. They needed a place to sit, relax, and refuel, a central hub where all ages could take a break from browsing. The food court solved that problem perfectly. It offered variety, affordability, and convenience. Unlike sit-down restaurants, food courts allowed families to satisfy different tastes all in one spot. Mom could get a salad, Dad could grab a burger, and the kids could share a basket of fries. For teens, it was independence, a place where they could grab a slice of pizza with friends, away from their parents, for just a few bucks. During the golden age of malls in the 80s and 90s, food courts became part of the ritual. Families spent hours shopping, then gathered at long communal tables to dig into trays stacked with burgers, fried chicken, lo mein, or cinnamon rolls. Chains like Sbarro, Panda Express, Chick-fil-A, and Orange Julius became mall staples, offering food that was quick, familiar, and indulgent. Even smaller regional vendors found homes there, adding variety to the lineup. The atmosphere was lively, often chaotic, but it was part of the charm. Brightly lit with plastic chairs and laminate tables, food courts weren't glamorous, but they were reliable. Everyone had a favorite stop, and the food became intertwined with memories of back-to-school shopping, holiday rushes, and lazy weekend outings. For teenagers, the food court was much more than a place to eat. It was the social center of mall life. Hanging out at the food court meant freedom. Teens could pool change to share a pizza, gossip with friends over milkshakes, or flirt across tables. Some came for the food, but many came just to be seen. The food court was the backdrop of countless first crushes, after-school hangouts, and group outings. Its affordability made it accessible to almost anyone, and its central location made it the perfect meeting place. For kids growing up in the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, the food court was a rite of passage, but as malls began to decline, so did their food courts. The change wasn't sudden, it happened slowly, as one chain after another closed, replaced by empty counters or generic stands. Today, many food courts look like ghost towns, half empty with only a handful of tenants still hanging on. Instead of bustling crowds and long lines, there are vacant tables and shuttered stalls. The mall food court, once a buzzing cultural hub, has become one of the clearest symbols of retail decline. The reasons are many. Online shopping gutted mall traffic, cutting into the very reason food courts thrived. Where families once spent entire Saturdays at the mall, now they order clothes, gadgets, and gifts with a click. Without steady shoppers, food courts lost their captive audience. At the same time, food culture itself shifted. Diners today expect fresher, healthier, and more customizable meals, and many traditional food court offerings. Greasy pizza slices, fried chicken, sugary drinks feel dated to younger generations. Fast casual chains like Chipotle and Panera offered a different model, emphasizing quality and atmosphere that food courts struggled to replicate. Economic factors piled on. Rents for mall spaces rose even as customer traffic fell, squeezing out smaller vendors who couldn't keep up. Anchor department store closures further hurt malls, leaving food courts isolated with little draw. By the 2000s, many malls had rebranded or restructured, turning food courts into smaller dining areas, or replacing them entirely with full-service restaurants or entertainment concepts. In some cases, food courts simply disappeared, leaving behind echoes of a once busy culture. Yet the nostalgia for food courts remains strong. For many, memories of food courts are tied to milestones, grabbing a slice of Sbarro while shopping for prom dresses, celebrating a birthday with friends over Cinnabon, or resting with family after hours of holiday shopping. Even the sensory overload, the sticky trays, the smell of fried food mingling in the air, the echo of conversations, feels unforgettable. The food wasn't necessarily gourmet, but it was part of the experience. The food court gave shopping trips their rhythm. Shop, eat, shop again. The decline of food courts also reflects broader cultural changes. In the past, malls were social gathering points. They weren't just for shopping. They were places to see and be seen, to socialize, to spend time. Food courts amplified that, offering a democratic space where anyone could sit down, regardless of what store they came from. In today's world, social life is fragmented. Teens don't meet up at the mall, they connect online. Families don't spend whole afternoons browsing department stores. They split their time between Amazon and soccer practice. The communal culture that made food courts so vibrant has fractured, leaving behind a shell of what once was. Some malls have tried to reinvent the food court concept, transforming them into upscale food halls with artisanal vendors, craft cocktails, and trendy menus. These spaces attract urban crowds looking for unique dining, but they feel very different from the old food courts. Instead of affordability and accessibility, the focus is on experience and novelty. For some, it works. But for those who remember the golden age of malls, it feels like a completely different universe. The old food courts were about family, affordability, and accessibility. The new food halls are about curated taste and exclusivity. For those who lived through the heyday of mall culture, walking into a food court today can be bittersweet. The echoes of what used to be are everywhere. You can almost picture the long lines at Chick-fil-A, the kids begging their parents for an orange Julius, the teenagers taking over tables for hours. Now, those same spaces might be half empty, with only a handful of customers and boarded-up counters where favorite chains once thrived. It feels like a ghost town, not because the food disappeared, but because the culture that supported it did. And yet, the memories endure. People still talk about their first orange Julius, their favorite spot at the food court. The thrill of piling trays high after a long day of shopping. For many, those experiences defined their youth, shaping their sense of independence and fun. Even if the food court has faded from relevance, its legacy lives on in memory, a reminder of a time when malls were more than just shopping. They were social hubs, cultural landmarks, and homes of comfort food. Because in the end, the food court was never just about food. It was about community. It was about gathering with family, about laughing with friends, about being part of something bigger than yourself. The decline of mall food courts isn't just the story of retail, it's the story of changing culture, of how people shifted their time, money, and attention elsewhere. But for those who remember, the food court will always be more than plastic trays and greasy pizza. It was a place where memories were made, where the ordinary felt exciting, and where life, at least for a while, was lived in the glow of neon signs and the smell of cinnamon rolls.